This show is sponsored by PowerfulWomenUSA.com, a place to be inspired by other women. Hey everybody, I'm Jill Conway, and this is Secrets of Powerful Women, a show dedicated to celebrating and supporting strong and successful women and sharing their stories. I'm hoping that you will be inspired to pursue your own dreams, reclaim your voice, and discover your strengths. So my guest today is Hannah O'Donovan. Hannah is a somatic channel. She's a nervous system specialist and activator, and she works with women to unlock their potential and their hidden dreams. So Hannah, thank you for being here. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Jill. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Oh, me too. So Hannah, for people who don't know, tell us what you do exactly. I mean, we read the title, but what do you really do?
Yeah. So at its core, I help women come in to connection, activate their untamed divine feminine. So I myself experienced basically hustling in my masculine for many, many, many years of my life. And it led to a very serious burnout, nervous system breakdown, which forced me to take a look at where I was misaligned in life and how I could realign to a version of success that felt way better in my body than what I had been doing previously. And so now I help other women do that. I help them root into love, wealth, legacy in a way that feels sustainable through all seasons of their life. And that is really about devoting to themselves, devoting to their nervous systems, and connecting to their deep, deep desires that often get buried under obligation and duty and people pleasing and all that conditioning that we move through as women.
Yeah. All right. So let's, so you mentioned burnout and what you went through. So let's get into, if you don't mind, the specifics of, because I feel like so many women are in it, or maybe trying to get out of it and don't have a word for it, or don't realize that, oh, is this what's happening? Right. So how would you describe burnout?
Yeah, I think I see burnout. I mean, there's many different ways to look at burnout. I see it as kind of two kinds. One is a more quiet burnout, and one is a more sort of crisis obvious burnout. And I've been through both myself. The crisis obvious burnout for me was my body sending me a lot of signals that I continue to ignore. So hair loss was a big thing for me, digestive issues. Like I couldn't even take a bite of an apple without feeling like I had just eaten like a full holiday meal. My anxiety, which had always kind of hummed in the background, was turned up full volume. Things that usually made me a little uncomfortable, like flying, for example, I couldn't even fathom getting on a plane. So these anxieties became panic. I was isolating quite a bit. And so these were the initial signs that I saw. And then it ramped up into a point where my body actually basically turned my nervous system to a state of fight flight. And I kind of got stuck there. So I was having multiple panic attacks a day. I was unable to do regular life, like leave the house, work, these kind of things. So that's like a pretty intense sort of crisis burnout. But I also think that there's the quieter burnout where we are exhausted, that kind of wired but tired feeling. So we're like, I'm on and I need to keep doing things, but I'm really exhausted, but I can't seem to figure out how to slow down, or I'm afraid of slowing down. What am I going to be faced with? Feelings, thoughts, sensations when I do that, continuing to add things to the to-do list, even though maybe our body's saying, please slow down. And our brain's like, yeah, but just at the end of the next week, I'll slow down. At the end of next week, I'll slow down, and so on and so forth. Right. These are signs where our body's saying like, okay, I think this is too much and maybe we're misaligned. But it's so easy to override those feelings and sensations, right? It might be that physical feeling in your chest, in your throat, in your stomach. There's a tightness when you're asked to do something. You're really, really irritated that someone's asking you, like, how could they possibly be asking me this right now? When maybe it's not that big of a deal. It's like a partner or a child or a friend saying, hey, could you help me out with this? And you're like, I'm going to explode if one more thing comes onto my plate. Those can be the signs where it's built up and your body's saying, please, we've got a bit too much here.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I think, wow, that blew me away, because I think that, first of all, I think so many of us, and I've been in that category at one point, where we don't know how to relax.
Yeah.
right? We just simply like you, and I know so many women friends who are like, I can't sit still. And if I do, all of a sudden then I fall asleep or something on the couch or
Yeah.
something, right? We push ourselves to, like you said, sheer exhaustion mentally, physically, emotionally, and then we don't know what to do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that I don't know how to relax is so normal. So common, actually, I should say, but not
Yeah.
normal. It's
Cool.
so common that if you have been going, especially high achieving women, women
Yeah.
who have a lot on their plate all the time at work, at home, it's so understandable that you think about wanting to slow down. You think about, okay, this weekend it'd be really nice if I could just like sit on the couch and read a book. And then the nervous system starts to kind of kick in, and it might be subconscious. You might not be very aware, but it goes, yeah, but what about this and this? And maybe you should do this. And actually, even though, your neighbor just asked you and all you want to say is, no, sorry, I'm reading on the couch this weekend, you say yes. And you're like, wait, why did I say yes? All I want to do was say no. And our nervous systems, while they are extremely intelligent, they are wired for our survival. And that means that they like to stay with what is familiar, even if what is familiar is not helping us in the long run. Even if what is familiar is exhausting us, at least it's like, I know this. I know that I can continue to feel worthy and loved and connected if I keep saying yes to everyone and everything. And so I'm going to keep doing that rather than looking over here and saying, okay, actually, my long-term trajectory, my long-term growth might be better if I figure out how to create more space and stillness in my days or my weeks. And that's going to feel uncomfortable at the beginning. You're not doing anything wrong if it feels uncomfortable. And that's why it's important that we learn the tools to be able to sit with that discomfort of saying no, of not people pleasing, of being in stillness for once, so that we can kind of get over that like wave that feels sometimes insurmountable.
Well, that's an interesting point. I think the people pleasing, I think some people use it as a bad word type of thing, right? So, but what I mean by that is, you don't want to say you're a people pleaser, right? Because then it's like, oh gosh, like I'm a people pleaser, like it's shameful. But it's like, I think it's part of our culture, as certainly as women, to want to be there for everyone and need to be there for everyone. But as you just mentioned, and I think is so interesting, when you feel valued when you're helping everyone, right? Instead of what you say, like, instead of like slowing down and say, wait a second, like maybe it would be better for me to like do something for myself. And that's not, as you said, like that's not gonna please everybody.
No, it's certainly
Yeah.
not. Well, and
Yeah.
that's such a good point, Jill, because there's a reciprocity to the um feminine principle of nurture. So you're
Yeah.
totally right. Women do have this innate want to nurture their
Yeah.
community, their families, and themselves. But there's a difference between the reciprocity that comes with nurture, which is I'll pour into you and you pour back into
Right.
me. And this is something we're filling each other's cups up, versus people pleasing, which sometimes comes from a very understandable place of, I have learned that if I say yes here, or I keep over giving or over functioning, that I will feel safe because I will feel connected, even though that
Mm.
connection isn't necessarily nourishing in the way we actually crave. We've been taught since perhaps we were little girls that this is the way things feel certain.
Yeah.
If I just say yes, I know that like I'm not going to rock the boat too much. I'm not going to have to sit in my own discomfort or with someone else's discomfort of saying, actually, that's not going to work for me this weekend. I
Mm.
can't do that. Right. And so
Mm.
it's taking that pause and saying, okay, am I saying this because I just want to keep the peace? Or maintain control, which feels safe to me? Or am I saying
Mm.
this because it feels reciprocal? And I think it's so important that when we look at pouring into ourselves, there's this shame that sometimes come with it. Like, that's selfish because I have all these other things I should be doing instead. But the more we can pour into ourselves and nourish ourselves and devote to ourselves, the more we have to give out to others. It's
Right.
beautiful in the way that that fills you up to want to do more
Right.
for others. So we're not saying put up the boundaries and never, you know, help someone else out again. It's
Right.
where are we, from what place are we making those decisions?
Oh, I think that's important, right? What are we doing? Are we doing it, like you said, to receive the praise? To like, why are we helping that person out? Because that's just ingrained in us as children. Like, you are worthy if you are helping the family, you are valued if you don't sit on the couch and relax, if you constantly are
Mm.
doing yard work, like, or whatever it might be. I think that is a big, big point. And yet, and I think as men, obviously men suffer from this too, and I don't
Oh,
want to
yeah.
discount them in this, because they're, in our culture, they have to be the breadwinners, right? And they have to take it over, which is, our culture is messed up. Let's just say that. but but I think what you touched on there too is that you said, like, the need to be in control. It's so, I mean, that's so powerful. And i I don't think people realize that they have that need. But describe that to me, when you need to be in control like
Yeah.
that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And we talk a lot about this on my podcast. And it comes from my own personal experience when I really saw, like, being in control gives us a false sense of safety. It makes us feel like, okay, if I've got a tight grip on everything, then ideally nothing bad is going to happen. And I feel that I'm on top of all things and that I am, and creating a scenario to remove uncertainty from life, which unfortunately, one of the only certain things about life is that it is uncertain. And the
Right.
more we push against that uncertainty, the more we refuse to surrender to that uncertainty, the tighter our control gets, and the more illusion we have that we've got control over everything. But in fact, that's never going to stop uncertainty from happening. And in my experience, the tighter we grip, the bigger the experience of uncertainty at the end of it, right? Where we really have to learn that lesson, that the more we can surrender into life. And this doesn't mean like throw away the to-do list and never, have structure again, because structure is important. But feeling the need to walk into a room, whether that be your home with your family, a boardroom with your colleagues, or your own business, and controlling the space, controlling the outcome, that shifts things into an energy that feels, for lack of better word, like there's a desperation in that, right? For me, I realized I'm so afraid of being disappointed by someone, by life, that if I grip onto control, I will avoid disappointment. Newsflash, no, that's unfortunately not what
Right.
happened at all. I was smacked in the face with some massive disappointment when I had
Mm.
my big burnout moment. I ended a 7-year relationship. I completely shut down my
Mm.
business. I was living with my parents in my early 30s. Like, I couldn't name the amount of disappointment that I was sitting in the sense of like, I didn't think this was where I was going to be at 33 years old. And it taught me such a beautiful lesson about surrender, about surrendering to life and saying, yes, while I can maintain some structure to my life, allowing life to come in and surprise us, allowing people to come in,
Mm.
surprise us. And I think this shows up particularly between usually, I would say, men and women in heterosexual relationships, where women are in their masculine energy and an overabundance of their masculine energy. So they're perhaps leading all day at work, and then they're having to come home and lead all day at home because there is a lack of trust perhaps there, or that's just the rhythm that you've gotten into. And there's this control that's ever present. And then we don't trust that someone else, like a partner, could come in and take care of the house or of the kids. And it kind of builds and builds and builds on itself, right? And that imbalance then creates such a lack of trust, not only in others, but in ourselves, to be able to deal with perhaps someone doing something not quite to our standards or not exactly the way we had thought they would, right? I see this very much in romantic relationships with our women's standards of like, he's going to read my mind and know exactly what I need and come to my rescue and plan the perfect date and so on and so forth. And I remember when I first started dating my now partner, I had this instinct that he would be like, okay, we're going out on Friday night. And in me, immediately, I was like, okay, where are we going? I want to know like what exactly we're going, like what restaurant is he going to pick the right restaurant? Cause I'm really picky about what restaurants I go to. Right. All of that. And then I wanted to like start to kind of like guide the situation. And I had to just take a breath and say, I've always wanted a partner who took the initiative to plan dates, to take me out, to surprise me. And maybe I've been one of the like reasons why that's not happened as much, because I want to know every detail. And instead I was just like, even if he picks the wrong place, that's okay, because he's showing up and he's planning, you know? And so, yeah.
Oh, I was like that too. I was like that too, Hannah, but I think it's so common because the need to control, and it's not only, I've kind of like, now I'm at the phase where I think in my life where I'm just like, oh, whatever, everyone wants. I'm good. Let's just go with the flow. Like, and it's like, we end up where we're supposed to end up, and it'll be great. Right. But, I feel like people, especially, they want to control, especially people I see now who have kids or a dog or something. And I don't mean to equate the same, but something that they have and they care for, where it has to be like this and this and this, and they have to do this, and they have to go to the school, and they have to get that degree, and they have to go into this line. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute. And it's often the parent, that I've seen, it's what they wanted to do and didn't do it often. So they're like, okay, like, I wanted to be, for example, I want to be a soccer player. I never made it to the big league. So my child is going to do that. And I'm going to do everything I possibly can to kind of force them into it. Even though come college, they're like, yeah, I'm not feeling it anymore. High school, you know what? I don't want to do this sport anymore, but no, we have to do it. So it's so interesting. And I think when parents, and you probably have seen this many times, and I please mention the name of your podcast too, but the need to control is suffocating to parents and to whomever else. Like, it's like when you step back and you're like, you know what, let them find their own path. It's so free. It's so freeing to do that.
It really is. And it does take a lot of surrender. And again, going back to talking about this, like being able to sit in the discomfort of like, as a parent, and I'm not a parent yet, I hope to be one day, but I have phenomenal parents. I came into this incarnation in life absolutely blessed with parents who like by no means are perfect, and they'll be the first ones to admit it. But they were so, particularly my mom, set on ensuring that me and my sister were independent and we kind of found our own way. And that, yes, there was a lot of guiding, of course. But that meant like we experimented with a lot of stuff. I went through a very strange makeup period where I wore like really crazy amounts of eyeshadow. And then like there was some very interesting fashion choices in my high school years and all of that. And I look back and I'm like, oh, what was I doing? But then I'm so grateful for the fact that I'm sure I walked down the stairs. My mom was like, oh no, what is she wearing? Oh my gosh, her eyeshadow looks like, I remember we had like a family photos we were taking, and I insisted on like packing on this like dark brown makeup. And I'm sure my mom, every fiber of her being was like, this is not what I was picturing when we like set up this family photo session. But they just allowed it. And I think that is a part of just being human, that like, it comes from a place of love normally.
Yes.
It comes from a place of, I've been there, I've done this, I know, and therefore I want to help you do better than I did. And that's a beautiful sentiment. But we have to remember that like when we don't let life in and surprise us, when we don't let, I refer to it as the universe, but whatever word resonates for
Right.
you,
Source, God,
source,
whatever.
God,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
When we don't allow that to come in and surprise us, our vision of what life could look like may be very limited, right? Like
Mm.
we think, okay, this is the path, this is the track, this is the one way to do things. But if we don't allow ourselves sometimes to meet massive failure or say no to something when our mind's saying, why, that's crazy. Why are you saying no to this? But our entire body's like, this is not
Mm.
it. And the number of times I've done that and then something
Mm.
10 times better has come along. Like when I ended a 7-year relationship in my early 30s, my entire being was for years was like, you can't do this because you're going to be single at 33. Your
Mm.
ovaries are starting to dry up. You want kids. Like this is a crazy decision. And you don't even
Right.
know if what you believe is out there is actually out there. And so I stayed in that relationship a lot longer than I would have had I had the courage initially. But finally, my body made the decision for me. And then I went on to meet my now partner who just absolutely like is my person and lights me up. But imagine I had stayed with that one definition of like,
Mm.
you have to stay in this relationship long term, you have to have kids and buy a house, and you can't
Mm.
go out and see what else is out there. The universe loves to meet us when we choose ourselves, right? When we say, I think there's more out there for me. And at the end of the day, I think that's what this control piece is really important to understand, whether it's we're doing it to ourselves or our kids or our partners or what have you. We are potentially robbing ourselves of the opportunity to see what's better, what's even
Mm.
greater than our minds imagined, right? Who knows, that child that you're trying to force into playing soccer at college could then go on to have this unbelievable experience somewhere else. And if we're like, no, this is it, this is the only option, what else do we miss? Right?
Right. Oh my gosh, there's so much to unpack in everything you said, and I think it's so important. First of all, tell everyone what the name of your podcast is.
It's called The Untamed Divine.
Okay, okay, because so
Yeah.
everyone has to look that up and follow that, and I'll create the link too. But all right, so there is so much more to talk about, and we're going to talk about ways. Then we're going to dive into this about how we can kind of chill out a little bit and work with our bodies who are our bodies are just so informative. And we're going to talk about that right after the break. We'll be back with Hannah Donovan. You're listening to Secrets of Powerful Women. Everybody, help me get the word out. Share this with a friend, especially someone who needs it, because this is so good. We'll be back. Hi, everybody. I'm Jill Conway. If you love what you're listening to, please like and subscribe to my channel on whatever podcast platform you listen to and on YouTube, so I can keep bringing you these amazing women and sharing their stories. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you love it as much as I do. All right, welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Secrets of Powerful Women. Hannah O'Donovan is with me, and we're talking such a great conversation. There's so much to really unpack in all of it. And Hannah, I want to talk more about burnout and things like that. And then you talk about how it affects your body and your business. So we did leave off on that because I feel like many people don't, and it seems silly when I say it, but many people don't realize there's the connection between your body and your mind and how you're feeling and your nervous system. And that when you burn out and mentally and emotionally, oftentimes it shows itself in our bodies and we get sick, physically sick in some way. And hopefully it's not too serious, but it can be.
Yep.
So how does that nervous system like work like that? Like, how does it in conjunction with everything else?
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally understand what you're saying there, where it sounds silly when we say out loud, like, we don't realize that our mind and our body are connected. But I think in practice, that's a very common thing. I know that like for the first 30 something years of my life, I went around as if I was like a severed head, or at least I would say certainly in my 20s. I grew up
Mhm.
dancing. I love dancing, and that was a huge outlet for me. And then I noticed as I went off to university and I stopped dancing as regularly, I didn't have that same movement practice, that outlet. And then my 20s became a really difficult time for me. I feel like people talk a lot about your teenage years being like really difficult. I didn't find that. I found my 20s were like so hard. I dealt with so much anxiety, self-doubt, overriding, self-abandoning, all of these things, some depression. And I now look back and realize maybe that was because I wasn't as connected with my body as I had been previously. And so this kind of floating head almost syndrome where we think my mind's got it, it's going to figure it out, I'm going to analyze my way through this. I still can be the queen of that, right? Like thinking all the time. I wake up in the mornings and my brain is switched on. That's part of
Mhm.
my neurodivergence. It's going all of the time.
Mhm.
But when in my instance, my body forced me to slow down and pay attention, right? And like you mentioned, I've talked to a lot of women who have ended up in hospital because of
Yeah.
their burnout, building businesses and, going there for fatigue, seizures, dehydration, like very serious things. Because number one, our bodies can exist in survival for a very long time. It's incredible how much we can take on and that we can um, manage through. That said, we shouldn't be, because basically the way, and this is such a simplified explanation of it, but your nervous system has two main states. You've got your um, sympathetic, which is your fight flight, and your parasympathetic, which is your rest and digest. Both are extremely important. We want to be able to flexibly move between the two because they are important. If we stayed in one forever, we
Mm.
would actually die because our bodily processes would either shut down or we'd sort of run out of energy. And so it's not this idea that we need to be calm and zen and like completely unbothered all the time. In fact, I don't believe in that at all. And with a lot of women that I work with, I explore things like sacred rage, pleasure, joy, all these things that do come with a connected parasympathetic and sympathetic activation. But the idea being that we shouldn't be staying in that activated fight flight mode consistently. We should be coming back to our rest and digest state, to our baseline, so that our body can shift its resources back into the areas that it needs to, and that we have time to be in our creative flow and that kind of energy. But because of the world that we live in, the amount of content that we're constantly consuming, the amount of responsibilities that many of us have on our plates, that chronic stress state, that
Mm.
activated fight flight, and our nervous system kind of getting stuck there, for lack of a better word, means that resources are being diverted away from digestion, for example, away from even areas of our brain where we're, you know, creating and storing memory, to other areas of the body, as if we were being chased by a wild animal and we needed to survive, which means that our body's not functioning in the beautiful balance that it is meant to. And so, again, it's not that we don't ever want to get activated. It's not that we don't ever want to express anger or frustration or excitement or things that do require us to be in a more activated state. It's that when we are experiencing stress, we're completing that cycle. We're coming back to a baseline. We're not going all the time with
Mm.
no rest, because at a certain point, it's like, for example, running a car, right? Every once in a while, you need to fill the gas tank up. You need to change the oil. You need to take it in for maintenance. And not that I want to compare our beautiful, intelligent bodies to a machine, because we are
Okay.
not.
Mm.
But if I just run my gas tank dry, or if I never get my oil changed, at some point, this
Yeah.
car is going to stop working. And that's
Right.
kind of like what happens with burnout. If we're constantly driving 100 miles per hour down the highway at all times without pulling over to rest or slow down, take in the scenery,
Mm.
we're going to burn out. That's not like a option. It just, for different people, that happens on different timelines.
Yeah. Yeah. So how Did you go to school for this, by the way? Like, did you always want to say, I'm going to be a somatic healer, like activator?
No, I did not, which is funny because when I actually look back and reflect on my life, it makes total sense that I'm here. Since I was a kid, I've been like a seeker wanting to understand the human experience on such a deep level. I don't know if you remember the like Chicken Soup for the Soul books.
Sure. Yeah.
I was like reading those in high school and I was just like everything. And then in in high school, did a world issues class, which actually led me into, I thought I was going to go into biology in university and study like criminal investigation and all that, like CSI before CSI really took off. And then I did this world issues class and I was like, this really interests me. And I ended up going to university for international development, African studies, and social studies of medicine, which was beautiful. I learned so much. I thought I was going to go off and work for like the WHO or the UN. And then I came home from university. I needed to get a job. I needed to make some money. A family friend was looking for some short-term coverage at the company she worked at. So I came in, I did that. And then I ended up getting a job as an EA, an executive assistant to the senior vice president. And it was an event production company. And then I just kept going because as I basically shifted from my academic validation as a kid, where I was getting good grades and therefore feeling worthy and accepted by my peers and my teachers and my parents. I then moved into event production, which is very high stress, very high demand, and they as in, the people who you're working for need you to keep moving and producing beyond often your limits to make things work. And so you're constantly being validated, like, oh my God, you're so amazing, thank you so much, because I need you to keep pouring into this regardless of how you're feeling. And so I did that I worked for companies and corporations for a while, and then I started my own thing. And that was, I went out on my own about a year before the pandemic. And then in the pandemic, completely flipped to virtual events, learned a ton about how to like produce events virtually. And then, kept moving, kept going, was getting incredible opportunities. I went to Rwanda for a festival. I was traveling throughout the States, working with some really high profile clients and events, thinking, whoa, this is like everything I dreamed of when I went out on my own. And then realizing, oh, how much I was ignoring what I was actually feeling on the inside. I was chasing a version of success that someone else out there had told me was the right thing to do. And that was mostly money in the bank. As long as there was money in the bank was what felt validating to me. It didn't matter how I felt in any other area of my life. And then because I hit this burnout, I ended up doing, it was a personal journey first. I actually worked with a cognitive behavioral therapist, and then I dove into neuroscience. Oh, and then from there, somatics. I started getting back into my body, actually allowing myself to feel the sensations in my body, notice them, and then realize that they were signals of misalignment, because our bodies are so intelligent, like unbelievably intelligent. They know that we are misaligned before our mind does. So if we are able to open up our awareness to the signals our body are sensing, to the sensations, and to our inner knowing, our intuition that lives in that space, in that energetic womb space, then we are able to actually notice things and catch things sooner and realize, even though my mind is telling me that this is the path I want to be on, my body might be giving me a slightly different signal to maybe say yes or no to this opportunity that I didn't think was as aligned. And when we tap into that, it's magic, because we can collapse the time between what would have come for us anyways when we can listen to that signal that the body's sending.
So what's the signals? What are some common signals that we
Yeah.
should really pay attention for?
Yeah. I mean, I will say for sure, in my experience, my anxiety and my depression were huge signals of misalignment. When I started treating my anxiety, which for me is a physical sensation in the chest, it's a tightness in my chest, a tightness in my throat. I would start to realize if I could catch that instead of overriding it, it was my moment to say, okay, let's sit down and take a look at the calendar and go, okay, I think there's a bit too much on here. Or wait a second, I've said yes to some things that actually don't align with this, the goals that I am looking ahead at. Some busy work, some make work, or just out of the need of feeling like, yes, I should say yes to that. Um, Often there are like physical contractions. So I actually I work with clients to understand what a somatic yes and a somatic no is in their body.
Ooh.
So a somatic yes will often feel more like an opening or a relief or a sense of stillness and peace in the body, versus like, yes, there's that excitement that can come with an opportunity, but when we really know there's alignment, usually it feels more still and peaceful, that we're not necessarily like really overexcited about something. Cause sometimes we can get caught up in the energy and think
For
that
sure.
it's a yes, and then be
Yeah.
like, ooh, actually, I wish I hadn't said that.
Mm.
But more, it can be like a peace, like a breath, like a, whew, your kind of soul is exhaling. And you could might even notice your posture changes, like your chest opens up, your shoulders drop back, a loosening in the hips, even, because that's where we can store a lot of our emotions, our energetic emotions. Um, and then a no can be a physical, like kind of bracing or closing off of the shoulders, kind of collapsing of the chest, like we're almost trying to turn away from it. It can feel like a tightening in the belly or the chest. Or like I said, or the throat. And so paying attention to those signals of like, okay, when, I would say, especially in the womb space, and regardless of gender, we all have an energetic womb space. It's around the belly for women, obviously, who have wombs. It's connected to the physical womb as well, but a lot of truth lives in that space. So if we can even take a moment when you're trying to make a decision, put your hands on that space, connect with it, breathe into it, and then ask. I will find a lot of the time, like, I'll feel the anxiety from my chest to my throat, but then when I drop down into my belly, I can connect with more truth. And this isn't to say that if you've never done this before, that the first time you do it, all of a sudden your body's going to give you this like absolutely clear thing.
Yeah.
But it's like building any relationship, right? It's takes time to get to know your own body signals. When you first meet another human being, you don't know what makes them tick, what their facial expressions mean, what they need right away. But over time, you learn that by having conversations with them, by listening, by paying attention. Your body absorbs information about them even below your subconscious. That's the same thing when we talk about coming back into relationship with ourselves. I started simply by noticing, oh, okay, my chest feels a little tight. I'm just going to take 3 deep breaths here. I'm not going to try and fix it. I'm not even going to let my mind try and figure out why. I'm simply going to take 3 deep breaths. And then that became a habit. And then I was able to dive a little deeper. So it's building awareness, and then it's responding, and then it's repatterning how we respond.
I think what's the most important thing, as you said, and I think in very basic terms, it's get in touch with your emotions. Like get in
Mm.
touch and no one wants to feel. I feel like doing it. It's like a joke. Oh, get in touch with you, but right. But it's truly like because I've done this too, where I'm like I've said yes to something, and then I feel like that pit in my stomach, where I'm like, why did I do it? I don't want to go. Right. I
Mm.
don't I said yes, I don't want to go. And then once you change it, I'm like, you know what? I can't go. You do feel that sense of relief, right? And I teach that to my kids, and I've taught it for a very long time. It's like, see how your body react. If you're on making a decision, if you need to make a decision, and you envision saying yes and how it feels, and envision saying no, and which one feels better. And
Yeah.
it sounds corny, right?
It
They're like, everyone's like, where'd you get that from? And I was like, but it works, you
it
know?
it really does, like, so spot on. That's a beautiful way to say it. Like, envision the yes, envision the no,
Yeah.
see how it feels in your body, and trust your first sensation, because I think that's where people get tripped up,
Yeah.
where you feel that kind of like, oh, okay, there's a relaxing, but then your
Yeah.
mind comes in and starts
Yeah.
going, yeah, but if you say no to that, that's silly because you're trying to build your business and that's a
Right.
networking event. You should really go to it.
Right.
So it's especially at the beginning, it's a quick, but it's usually the first sensation is the truest. And then
Yeah.
our mind comes in to try to bargain with us about why we
Right.
should do the opposite of what
Right.
we want to. And then the more you do it, the more data you collect and validation you collect and realize, oh, I'm so glad that I said no to that client, even though I
Mm.
was really nervous about financially or what
Mm.
opportunity might come up, because then this other opportunity came in that was way more aligned for me that I couldn't have even, maybe wouldn't even have come in, but I
Right.
certainly couldn't have said yes to if I'd already said yes to this other thing. And
Right.
so it does take trust. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean an total absence of discomfort, but
Mhm.
when we align with like our true inner knowing, our intuition, it can guide us into a very, very powerful place in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know what I think? I feel like most people, they know some people know how they feel, right? But they don't, I hear it all the time. And they say, I don't want to disappoint someone. So
Mm,
I said I would go. But I don't want to, or I don't want to make someone mad by not going. Right. And it's like, why don't you care about how you feel?
yeah, agreed, totally. And I
Yeah.
do think there is some nuance to this conversation, certainly. And it's
Yeah.
something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. We have, I think, with social media and this feeling that we're kind of connected, but not
Mm.
actually like meeting our needs of
Yeah.
connection. It's like almost like a false sense of connection that we've come to understand that community shouldn't include inconvenience. And I do think
Mm.
that there is going to be feelings of inconvenience when you say yes to something that maybe isn't like, yes, maybe
Yeah.
I do just want to lie on the couch this weekend, but it's my friend's 40th birthday
Right.
and I should really like, I
Right.
know once I get there, I'm going to
Right.
love it. I'm certainly someone, I struggle with transitions in life. So the act of getting somewhere is
Right.
really tough for me, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to love it when I get there. And that's something I've
That's
had to learn about myself. So there is the nuance there, but there's a difference between
true.
inconvenience and resentment. Like I
Ooh.
am resenting that you are making me, I say that kind of in quotes because we
Yeah.
make the decisions, do
Yeah.
this versus, okay, this is not necessarily the most convenient because I have 50 things I need to get done this weekend, but I know that it's going to feel nourishing or reciprocal because I'm showing up for you and I know that you're going to come and show up for me as well. So there's so much discernment that comes with this, right? Of
Mm.
starting to learn our sensations. It's like, okay, am I just feeling tired?
Right.
Or am I really exhausted and I actually do need to rest and say no to this? Or am
Right.
I resentful because this person is not showing up for me
Right.
in the way that I'm showing up for them?
Oh, that's a great point. I think that's a very true point, right? And I feel like I'm the same way where I say sometimes I say yes to something. I'm like, oh, I don't want to go. But then at the same point, I'm like, just like the transition, like, yeah, I don't want to physically get there. But once I'm there, I'm gonna be like, yeah, this is the
Yeah.
greatest thing, you know? So that's so true. I feel like a lot of people deal with that too. Um, well, let's talk about, yeah, a few things. You say that your romantic partner is the most underrated business decision that you'll ever make. So I do want to talk about all these points that I feel like we could go off on every other thing forever. But so why do you feel that romantic partners are the most important for business?
Yeah. I mean, so I've been an entrepreneur for just over 8 years now, and I
Scary.
had
That's
yeah.
scary. Yeah, it is.
Oh, it
Yeah.
certainly is. Don't
Yeah.
get me wrong. As much as I believe in like being connected to your like
Yeah.
calm flow side, I love a bit of adrenaline,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
running your own business certainly gives me that.
Yeah.
But I have had the unique, and I call it a privilege, but privilege to build two businesses from the ground up with two different partners by my side, two
Wow.
very different partners by my side. My previous relationship, which was when I went from being full time employed for event production work to running my own business, freelancing and building that up. And it wasn't a particularly supportive environment when I first said that I was going to go out on my own, but then also like deeper parts of the relationship in general. And that's not to say like we are all very nuanced as human beings. And the reason that we do and don't support people isn't necessarily always from a malicious place. We have our own stuff. And I do care deeply about this previous partner, but there was a lot of hurt that they were layered under. And that seeped very much into our relationship. And I felt I didn't feel safe in that relationship in the sense of that base feeling of my body is safe. No, and I unlink that from like an actual physical threat to my safety, but I wasn't feeling my needs were being met. I was advocating for my needs. I was vocalizing my needs, and repeatedly they were not being met, which then led my nervous system to feeling like this doesn't feel like a safe place for me.
Right.
And because of that, it meant I was in my masculine energy a lot of the time, an overabundance of my masculine energy a lot of the time, which meant at work, I was in my masculine because I was constantly trying to build a business. I was hustling. A lot of structure is required, obviously, to build a business and drive and force and all of these things. And then I was coming home and I was in my masculine energy at home because I didn't feel like I could switch that off and soften into someone who was going to take care of me. And then there were so a lot of my energy was kind of locked into this constant moving and going and taking care of things and control, like we talked about earlier in this episode. I was controlling everything around me, and I wasn't, while I was still able to build a successful business, because here's the catch, doing it in a very masculine driven way, in a control way, does not mean you're not going to be successful. It's just unlikely that success is going to feel good. It's unlikely that at a certain point you're not going to want to burn this whole thing down because you've built it in a way that is not in alignment with your natural rhythms and flow. But I then closed down that business and started building my now business, Soma. And I happened to start dating my now partner around the exact same time. And it was such a different experience this time around. Did he fully understand what I was doing? No, I do a lot of energy work. I work a lot with the nervous system. I'm like doing some interesting things, but he was so supportive and he saw the full me and he saw my potential. So not only did he support me actually doing this, but he asked questions about it. He's genuinely engaged and interested in and actually has really good feedback for me, which at the beginning I was resistant to listening to. And the biggest thing being that I can be in my masculine energy during the day building my business, and then I come home and I am in my feminine. My partner cooks. He does the grocery shopping. It is balanced. It is joyful. I can be really weird and silly around him. I am able to be more myself with him than I have with, certainly any other partner I've had. And that allows me to find more balance and also leak less energy, which means that I have the confidence to go out and take my business, take risks, and move it further than I ever did before, because I'm not leaking energy, number one, into this other area of my life. I'm finding more balance between my masculine and feminine, which I think is incredibly important, particularly for female business owners. And at a space, I have someone cheering me on, and any human being does better when you have someone cheering you on. And so I think that we underestimate, if we are really intent on being successful, chasing big dreams, huge ambition, which I have a lot of, how important it is to ensure that that partner at home is fueling that, not detracting from that.
But what would you say if, could it be, like, because I listen to this, and let's say someone says, well, my partner isn't supportive. I have a supportive partner too. But if say that, well, my husband, but could it be also because maybe have you told them what your dream is? Have you expressed that this is important to me and here's why? And maybe give them a chance, right?
That's such a good point, Jill, because I want to be very clear here.
Yeah.
I It happened to work out for me that, like,
Right.
I ended a relationship, built a new business, found a new relationship. I am by no
Right.
means saying if your
Right.
partner
Right.
isn't
Right. Right.
currently supportive, like,
Right.
get rid of them. I mean, in
Right.
some cases, that could be it.
Sure.
But I think that's really important too, because even with my current partner now, when I was starting to build what I'm building now, which is very different from
Mm-hmm.
what I had been doing
Right.
before, which is also a little bit woo woo, a little bit
Right.
out there. Not everyone's going to get it.
Correct. Right. And
I've
not everyone's going to have the vision you have, right? And we all have our
totally,
own vision of things. So, right.
exactly. And
Right.
so it's natural sometimes to want to keep
Correct.
that inside. There's
Yeah.
fear of failure. There's what if
Yeah.
this doesn't work out? And it's really, really my, like, if this feels like my soul's purpose, and that's
Right.
scary, like, what if it doesn't
Right.
work out and then I have to go back to doing what I was doing and all of that. So those
Right.
fears and that hiding, that visibility wound that
Right.
can come up, I think it is really important to create a safe container with your partner where you can
Mm,
exactly share. Have you sat them down and said, "Hey, this is important to me. This is where I think it's going. This is why." And I really believe deeply in this because, and this is something that I have come up with clients as well who are afraid to tell their families or their
mm,
parents, their partners, whoever it is, about this big idea or this
yeah.
new leap that they're taking in their life. It's also about the energy you bring to that conversation, because sometimes people will surprise you when you tell, I think it's parents especially, because they worry so much about
Mm,
you. When you tell your parents, I'm doing this thing and you might not fully understand it, let them surprise you in how they meet your energy. Because if you're coming with a clean, authentic energy to what you're doing, people read that in a way, like, even subconsciously, right? And so they might start to get on board with what you're doing even when they don't fully understand it. So I agree. Having honest
yeah,
communication about
for
what
sure.
you're doing is such an important part of it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, give people a chance first,
Yeah.
always. But listen, and it might be much deeper than that, and maybe it is time to end the relationship. I mean, only you know for sure, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think that's very important. I love what you said there. How do you think women You mentioned sabotage. They sabotage themselves. How do you why do you think that is? How and why?
Oh, yeah. Listen, I think I have, in the past couple of years, as I've built this new business, I have really studied success
Mm,
and why some people are successful and others aren't. And I have been
right.
in rooms with multi-million dollar women talking about um how and where they got their success. I've just absorbed so much information about this. And
Mm,
the number one thing I've understood, success is a longevity game. It is, how long can I stay in this? How many times can I pick myself up when I fail? How
mm,
often, because that gremlin in your mind is going to come in. I am not immune to waking up and my entire being like, this, nothing, you're not doing anything right. This sucks. Why even bother? Like,
right.
those
What are you
days, what are
thinking?
you thinking?
Right.
This is crazy.
Right.
You thought you could do this. Like, it's laughable, right? Like,
Right.
everything. And
Right. You're human.
anything
Yeah.
and everything. I'm human and
Yeah.
I'm also a woman. And there are different parts of my cycle where my brain operates
Yeah.
differently because of
Yes.
hormones and all of that. And
Yeah.
so the important part is anyone's ability to say, what is my ultimate truth here? What do I
Mm,
deeply believe inside? What is my inner knowing telling me
mm,
outside of all the noise, both external and internal? And how am I aligning to that? Right.
mm,
And so when you say sabotage, I think it's so easy for us to sabotage ourselves because those fears come in, and those fears are
mm.
natural. Uncertainty is so deeply uncomfortable to sit with. I have no idea if this is going to work out. I
Right.
have no idea if one day I'm going to be speaking on stages and I'm going to be making millions of dollars. I would love that to be the case,
Sure.
but I just don't know. And that's part of surrendering to something that's bigger than you. Because
Mm,
when you do start to align with your soul's purpose, whether that's in work, at home, as a side hobby, whatever it looks like, you start to understand that it's bigger than you. that you are not doing this simply for your experience in life necessarily, but because of what you as a soul has come here to be in service of the collective.
Yeah.
And so you will absolutely have those days where you are afraid of being seen. You are afraid of even receiving the money that you are receiving. You are afraid of leveling up because there's all that nervous system work that has to do with receiving is a whole other layer, especially for women. It's like, you may say you want something, but can you hold it when it comes, or are you jumping to the next thing? Right. And so at its core, I believe so deeply, and it's why with my clients, I do so much nervous system work, because that is the greatest saboteur that we can lean into, right? This feels uncomfortable, or I am afraid, and therefore I'm not going to do it. Like, I'll give you a quick example here. I was going the other day to lead an in-person breathwork session. For a company I really admire. I was really excited. It was part of their women's conference. And I do a lot of podcast recording or things on Instagram, or a lot of virtual work, which to me feels a little safer. Like, there's that kind of that safety when you're on screen versus in person. The energy is different, but I love doing in-person stuff. On the way to this thing, my entire being feels like almost like I'm going to die. Like, honestly, it feels like everything in me is like, turn around, go home, turn around, go home. I get to the venue and it's like, there's something really wrong here. Like, my chest is tightening up. And if I listened to that, if I thought, no, this is real, this fear is real, I shouldn't be doing this, I would be sabotaging myself versus saying, okay, Hannah, I understand you're really scared right now. I understand this is really important to you, and it's a big deal. And you really want these people to feel really good with what you're giving and what you're delivering, because that's so important to you. And you don't want to mess up in front of them. And all of these things, I get that that's scary, but we're going to do this. And so, I sat with myself. I did some breathing. I connected with my body, and I got up there and I did it. And I'm so glad I did. But so, just because things, like, we have to discern the difference between things that are not meant for us and the discomfort that comes with that, like perhaps staying in a relationship that we shouldn't be staying in, and things that are meant for us but feel uncomfortable because we're meeting our edges. And that is a lot of work with the body and connecting with the body to unlink those two things, because they can feel sometimes the same, but they are not.
Oh boy. There's just so many points I want to touch on. But I know, yeah. So I do want to, do you have a thing I want to talk about really quick? And it's, and then I want to go back to, surrender. Okay. So, but first I want to ask you, because you had, there's a few things that I wrote down, and one of them, because we talked about wealth and that women often sabotage themselves. And I don't know, say it's maybe the conditioning of our youth, but you have 3 flow codes to build wealth, by honing your natural rhythms, you say. So dive into that. Like, what exactly is that?
Yeah. So, I think the most important thing, particularly for female leaders, is understanding that we do not build in a masculine way. We do not build linearly. It is not about constant upward trajectory of growth and expansion. Actually, all human beings, but because I work with and speak specifically to female leaders, I'll keep it in this context. We mimic nature. We are part of nature. We have cycles. We are cyclical beings. We are meant to go through expansion and contraction phases. So when we equate consistency, which is often what people talk about when it comes to building successful careers or businesses, when we equate consistency to showing up exactly the same way every single day and always seeing exponential growth, we are already failing ourselves. We are already, I believe, heading in a direction that is not going to serve us long term. Because when we ignore that we are rhythmic beings, that we are cyclical beings, that there are both times of the month and times of the year for different types of growth and integration in our businesses, we ignore the natural way that we are supposed to build. So for me, flow codes are actually not to say that consistency overall is important. Like when I just spoke about the fact that that success is a longevity game, it is about being able to show up again and again and again. But it's not necessarily about having to show up the exact same way every day, or not allowing ourselves to take some rest, take a moment and come back at it. Because I have learned very much that in my moments of slowness, in my moments of that failed, or I am not where I thought I was supposed to be, have been my greatest expansion periods, or have been followed by my greatest expansion periods, because I've let myself sit in that failure, for example, or perceived failure. I've let myself sit in stillness. I've let myself slow down and go, even though I think I should be here on the timeline right now, I'm going to get comfortable with being where I'm at. And our ability to integrate our lessons, sit with them and understand, okay, where should I go next? Instead of just being like, okay, I got to just go here and move and keep moving. Growth happens so much further than that. I was actually on a podcast the other day, and the host was explaining that they did this experiment with trees. I believe it was in Japan. And trees, of course, like have a hibernation period, and they engineered it somehow, and I'll have to look this up, but they engineered it somehow to make trees grow exponentially, just like keep growing, kind of ignore their hibernation periods. And trees that would normally last 150 years lasted 10 years.
Yeah.
So again, it's not this idea that we can't push through and keep growing in this like exponential way, but it's how long, what is the longevity of being able to do that, right? So I think rhythm-based planning is really important, of saying like, when do I have, what is my energy like? When do I have my spurts? When do I need to hibernate? And maybe go against the grain. Like, for example, New Year's, for so long, I was like, why does this feel so uncomfortable in my body to like set resolutions and start the year off with a bang and really go into things? Well, because for those of us who live in Northern Hemisphere, it's winter. We're literally in a seasonal hibernation period, and we're trying to push our bodies against nature. And so spring is a much more natural time to grow and evolve and maybe set those new goals than, than New Year's. So this idea of like consistency is actually possibly what could be killing your business or your success, at least in the way that you have understood it. And so I really, really urge people to think of consistency of alignment over consistency of action. And what I mean by that is, how consistent can I be aligning with what feels right for me in the moment, rather than needing to take action all the time? Because from alignment comes action naturally. So when we try to put action first, then we miss a really crucial step of being aligned and then having the energy to build from there.
Well, what do you think about in our culture? And you see it all over social media. And I've spoken about this too with people, but this go, 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 go. I mean, you're not going to get ahead unless you keep going and work hard and give it all you got all the time. And I'm just like, that is the most unhealthy thing that I've learned. It's like, maybe it's not that way. Maybe we're not supposed to be doing that. And it's all these like wealthy millionaires who are saying, and it's like, really? Because they created a business where everyone else is working really hard, and maybe they're stepping back, right, to reap the benefits. So what do you think about that culture that we?
I think it's, I mean, listen, it goes against everything in our nature, in my nature. It's actually why I have built the business I have, because I don't agree with it at its core. I do not agree with the way that we build success in businesses on a more societal scale. I think it's extremely extractive from so many different angles, and it is not sustainable. We are experiencing the highest levels of mental health issues, of burnout, because we are constantly inundated with information and being treated like machines, like we don't need rest, or when we do finally realize we need rest, we need to almost be at crisis point for any company to say, okay, you're allowed to take time off now. You're allowed to take stress leave. Like, how many of you listening have thought about, okay, I really, really could use a break, but I'm not in a bad enough way to do that, because we've been conditioned that you have to literally be in the hospital
Right.
in order to say, I'm sorry, I need to slow down.
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
I think that success, as we understand it on a societal level right now, is extremely masculine driven and wounded masculine driven.
Mm.
And the feminine, the masculine need to be in balance. And we are so out of balance. And so bringing that back in balance is more the natural way of the world. And it also allows us to build on a long-term basis. Yes, it might feel more uncomfortable because it's slower. It might feel uncomfortable because you are not hustling in the way that you have been told that you have to if you're an entrepreneur, or anyone really, that you need to be working 80-hour weeks. And if you're not up at 6 a.m. doing your perfect morning routine, then what's the point? Stay home, give up, you're never going to make it.
It's true.
It's right. Like,
Yeah.
that's the narrative, right? It's you're lazy if you're not doing that. And while, again, I don't disagree, it does work. I always ask, at what cost does it work? And does it even feel good? Because a lot of people are pushing with this mentality and they are hating it every step of the way. They're dreading getting up to do this thing that they used to love. They have these businesses that, for a lot of women now, they employ people and they're like, well, I can't slow down because other people depend on me, but all I want to do is burn everything to the ground right now. And why do I feel like that? I spent a decade building this up. I thought it was going to feel better than this. And it's like, unfortunately, we've built it in such a way that is so out of sync with how our bodies naturally work, that of course we don't want to do it anymore. And so, do I think it takes longer sometimes to build that way? Yes, I do. I don't think it will come as quickly as a lot of us want it to, but it will last longer as well.
Yeah. Yeah. What is your advice then to people listening? And there's so many people who listen and be like, God, I hate my job. I hate where I'm at in life, and I'm just going to keep chugging along and hope I don't get too sick because I only have 2 weeks of a year I'm allowed to take off, and 40, 50, 60-hour work weeks, and which I think should be banished. I think we should only, if you want to work, if I ever build a company, it's going to be like, maybe 4 days a week, maybe even 3. Bring your dogs.
Yeah.
And you have the summer off, take a sabbatical every year, go somewhere for a month or two and enjoy yourself. But I mean, what do you say to people who are just burning out and they don't know what to do?
Yeah. I mean, I borrow this from my sister because she says this and I love the way she says it. If it feels too much for you, it's too much. And I think we often sit in this comparison game where it's like, this feels overwhelming for me, but like Jen next to me seems to be handling this fine. So it must be something wrong with me. You have no idea what's happening below the surface with Jen. She could look like she has it all together and be absolutely crumbling inside.
Correct.
And also, Jen's system could work very differently from you. And that's okay. So if it's too much for you, it's too much, and that is okay. You don't have to operate at the level that everyone around you is operating if this feels like awful for you, or you are experiencing health issues. Secondly, I recommend spending time getting really honest with yourself, because that's often the missing link, right? That we're afraid, or I know for me, it was like, I felt like everyone outside of me knew better than I did. So even though that intuition, that inner knowing was telling me things, I was like, well, no, that's not how so-and-so's doing it, or that's not the model that I've seen outside of me, or what I'm hearing on Instagram or YouTube about how to build a business. So I must be wrong. Let's get really honest and understand that those signals and those sensations that are coming up within you they're there for a reason. Your truth is your truth, even though right now, in the the collective space that you're in, that might feel like you're really going against the grain. That doesn't mean that you are wrong. There are systems within businesses, within uh, work, within offices and companies that are built without the human in mind. And so if you're
Mhm.
feeling like this is way too much and it's not working, just because that goes against the like maybe rules and regulations and culture, it doesn't mean that they're right and you're wrong. So I think understanding that is really important. And then the other piece I would say of anyone kind of or at least starting this journey of like, I don't want to do it this way anymore, is devotion to self, devotion to nervous system. And that doesn't have to look like some crazy, like, okay, you're going to go on a week silent retreat and like figure everything out. I'm such a fan of micro moments in your day of stillness or expression, because the
Mhm.
body needs both. It's not always about just sitting down in
Mhm.
meditation. Maybe you need to move, maybe you need to dance, maybe you need to
Mhm.
experience joy and play and pleasure, because that's a huge thing missing from our society. The more we can play, the more we can engage in moments of pleasure before the to-do list,
Mhm.
the more likely we are going to start feeling like we're coming home to ourselves, because it's
Mhm.
so natural when we have veered so far off course, when we have self abandoned so much. Like I got to a point where I was like, I actually don't even know what brings me joy anymore. Like it's not even the fact that I'm not prioritizing it. I can't name it. I was so disconnected from it. So then it's little moments in the day. Like it's like,
Right.
can you sit with your coffee in the morning and smell it and enjoy it and not scroll on your phone,
Yes.
not have a conversation about the calendar for the day, but 2 minutes,
Mm.
stop. And I know it's hard because like I often want to sit down and eat my lunch, grab my laptop and do some work
Yeah.
while I'm doing it. But no, let's step away,
Mm.
right? How can we devote to ourselves in those moments, find the peace inside so that the answers even have a chance to bubble to
Mm.
the surface?
Oh my gosh. Wow. I think that's it, right? I think I love this conversation. God, I mean, Hannah, I think we could go on. I could have this conversation for hours. I truly could.
Me too. Me too.
Um, I love it. But I think that's so important. And I always share, because what I've been through too. And, putting down your phone, we are all addicted to our phone
Oh
with
yeah.
everything that's happening. And I think that's a beautiful point. If you can delay picking up your phone in the morning, or putting it down at night, where you truly, I now have to leave it sometimes in another room.
Yeah. Me too.
Right.
Me too. It's in
And
another room.
yeah, and it's like, and some people are like, how do you do that? I'm like, because it is such a release and a relief when you don't have that. Who's sending you an email? Who's texting you? All these things, when you're just like, I'm walking away from it. And it's like years ago, I didn't grow up with a phone, right? When you went out for a walk, you were just out.
Yeah.
You were just taking in nature, and I think, as you said, find what brings you joy, just whether it's the moments, whether it's, find that, I hate to say inner child, but like what brought you joy? Is it
Yes.
coloring? I know a lot of adults that start coloring, and that is a beautiful thing too, when you start to just
Yeah.
or paint or listen to music, or as you said, dance, like just those moments of joy, that we've been missing in our lives.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be a big thing. You don't have to go sign up for a dance class and commit to dancing once a
Right,
week. If
right,
you
right,
want to, absolutely. Put
right,
one song on in your day that just lets you get up and move to the music. And if you're
right.
feeling resistant to that, it's probably even more important that you
Mm,
do it, right? And I
mm,
totally agree, Jill. Like going back to what did you love as a child? If
right,
you're feeling that disconnection like I did, where I was like, I don't even know what brings me joy
right.
anymore.
I went
What
through that too. Yeah,
what did I love as a child? And start
right,
there.
right. Which is so, gosh, Hannah, it's such a hard conversation because people don't. I know people in my own family that like, I don't know what a hobby would be like for me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, start thinking about it.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Baby steps. Baby steps. We
right,
don't have to go all in at once. It's going to
right.
feel uncomfortable to
Yes.
untangle from the hustle, from the to-do lists, and take
Mm,
time for yourself, and know that that's okay. That
yeah,
there's nothing wrong with you or
correct.
wrong with what you're doing if
Right.
that discomfort arises.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, Hannah, I'm gonna have to have you down here. I started a women's group, a networking and empowerment group, and I think I'd love to have you down to talk to every woman because I think we have to continue this conversation.
I would
Yeah.
love that. I'd be honored.
Oh my God, thank you. I think gosh, it's just so powerful and so important. So, all right, that's it for us. I mean, I took you for so much longer than I should have, and I know people people are like, does this keep going? But it does because it is that important. I think to me, to you, to figure out how we unplug, and just relax our bodies, relax our minds, and just
Yeah.
ease more into life. The
Yeah.
beauty of life, the beauty of life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. So a big thank you to Hannah O'Donovan for coming on the show and sharing your incredible story. Please, a website and your podcast again, Hannah. What is the information there?
Yeah, absolutely. So the podcast is the Untamed Divine. It's for female leaders to release anxiety and self-doubt through divine feminine abundance. And then I also have a little gift for you
Yay.
listening out there. It is called The Return Journey. It's free, and it is all about devotion to self. Like we just talked about, that kind of first step that we can take to come back into connection with ourselves. Extremely low lift. It's 5 audio activations that get delivered straight to your inbox daily, and all you have to do is press play and receive. So a really easy way to come back into that relationship with yourself.
Wow. And I'll attach that. I'll attach it.
Yeah, in the show notes if you could.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Oh, I'm excited. I'm going to do that too. I'm excited.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you so much, Hannah. And I want to say thank you for listening. I'm Jill Conway, and I love this show because it celebrates an amazing, incredible women like Hannah. And I hope that you're inspired to take some time for yourself and dream bigger, pursue your own goals, and believe in yourself because it's so important. Your voice matters, and your stories can help others. So I hope you join us next time. Share this podcast with a friend and follow us on Instagram. Thanks, everybody, and thank you, Hannah.
Thank you so much.